Hi everybody, welcome to my little space here. Long time see, saying, well, as you can see, I'm recording myself for this one. I believe it's better to have some visual cue of the person who's talking into the camera, into the microphone, so that way it's more of an interactive experience for the viewer. But yeah, most of my videos that I've done before have been only with microphone. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's go to our sponsors. I have no sponsors, man. This is a very small channel. Yeah, okay, no more jokes. For today, I'm going to discuss a bit something that I've been wanting to discuss for a pretty long time, actually, which is, of course, the game that you see in the background here, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. In my opinion, the best one out of all the existing Fire Emblems. And of course, I believe that this game overall has the best everything, you could say. It has some issues, some pretty definite issues, of course, but at the end of the day, I believe that overall, as a whole package, it's the best one. And I'm going to talk about the points why I believe that is the case. In this case, I believe that the game overall, it's great from its story, its gameplay, and its presentation too. But well, if I would explain myself more clearly, I may be able to let you know why I believe that. At the end of the day, I believe that many people are giving this game not as much attention and love as it deserves. And of course, that is everybody's desire to believe which one is their favorite game of series. But let's just start discussing the story of this game and why I believe it's the best one out of them all to start with. I believe that the story in this game is very, very big and complex. And at the same time, I believe that it has many points where it has a lot of complexity. Once again, this game is, you could say, divided in 4 to 5 acts, I believe. There's one first act, and before I talk more in depth, I'm just going to say there's going to be spoilers about this game. This is an analysis, an in-depth discussion. This is not what you would call just a small, short talk video with no spoilers. I'm intending this video to be very in-depth, as you may be able to see by its duration. But of course, that is just what you would call a little warning for anybody who is expecting to come here and just have a little talk that is not involving spoilers. If you have not played this game and you wish to play it before knowing anything about it, I will really, really, really recommend you to do that, so that you can experience this game as a whole without being spoiled. And then after that, if you're still interested, or if you like what you saw, you can do it like you could come back here and listen to my opinion. Also, if you don't really care about being spoiled and you just want to listen to somebody talk about this game, well, you're very welcome to stay. But yeah, back on topic. The story. The story is divided in 4 to 5 acts, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The first one is the one involving the girl you see there, silver-haired maiden, Micaiah. You could say it's a Fire Emblem game in miniature. If I'm not mistaken, it's 13 chapters that we have regarding her. And just to let you know, I'm planning to possibly make a future video talking about her because she's my favorite character alongside the whole series. You could say she's my favorite female, and I guess my favorite male character in the whole series. So I'm going to have a little video regarding her and why I believe she is such a great character. I mean, as any character out there, or most of them, she has issues, of course, but I believe she has been misjudged unfairly by many people. Especially, I believe a lot of people among them are people which have not even played Radio Down in its entirety. In order for you to have an opinion regarding a game or a movie or anything, pretty much, I believe it's very important for you to, well, have already played or watched the whole thing from beginning to end, because sometimes some well, creations can be judged by just looking at them, like pictures. But of course, if you listen to a song and you just listen to the first 30 seconds of that song and you say, oh no, it sucks, okay, maybe you're right about that little section, it wasn't not to your liking, but you cannot say that a song which lasts 7 minutes and 30 seconds and has well, a lot of changes to it, and you cannot say that the song sucks just because it had a bad opening, if you know what I mean. So yeah, just a little heads up, because she's basically the character that I want to talk about the most. But let's continue on with the story. Okay, so the first act of this game, it involves Micaiah, like I mentioned, the other character in this picture, which is Salt, her companion, and the character which is pretty much the most close to her. In this case, I believe that they both are connected to a degree where you believe that their relationship is it's a very deep. Okay, I'm going to bump up the volume here just a bit more, just in case I'm a bit quiet. I would like to not mess up this video in its entirety, go down the drain if I have a bad volume. Okay, so I believe now the volume is more loud. Hopefully I'm not too loud, but actually not too quiet. Okay, so yeah, the first part of the story involves Micaiah and Soph and their companion of heroes, the Down Brigade, going through a set of, you could say, developments and challenges, especially one that involves the people shown in this picture that you see in the back. The you could say dominion or imperial or country of Begnon, which has, well, corrupt officers which are managing it, and they have their soldiers and generals going down to the country of Micaiah, which is Diane, and they want to oppress them, sorry. So yeah, they're oppressing their country, pretty much utilizing that country to do as they please, and pretty much being what you would call a dictator, a domination of the whole country. There's no democracy, there's no freedom. They're pretty much oppressed by Begnon. So that first act involves Micaiah and her company of heroes, the Dawn Brigade, and other companions that they find along the way, liberating themselves from Begnon. So you have pretty much Dawn Brigade, which is Nolan, Leonardo, Edward. Those are the main three. Then they gather Lara and Aaron from some future chapters, and then they get I believe the most powerful ally, which is, well, the second most powerful ally in this case, Nyla, along Bullock and Raphael. those three join too. All of them are from the Lagoose species, or Lagoose characters. I don't know if it's species could have sounded a bit misinterpreted or, offensive, but well, you know what I mean. No offense to any character in this game from at least this perspective of description, And then I believe that they also are joined by other three characters which are part of Crimea, if I'm not mistaken, but they come representing Benya, Sanaki, the Empress Begna, which are Bika, Morim, and Tormod. And then you have the most powerful character that helps you throughout that part of the story, which is the Black Knight, which, well, if you already played the game, or as you all know, well, I'll leave that up for later in the video. But in resume, he's the most powerful character in that part of the story that can help you. Pretty much, I believe he's the most powerful character overall in the whole story. You don't have access to him besides this first part of the story in some other later chapter, but pretty much he is only present there to help the side of the character which is facing you. So although he's present in those chapters, he's not playable. He's just there as an enemy. So yeah. Well, so as Micaiah goes through this first part of the story, the Down Brigade faces Begnon so that they can drive them out of the Ain and regain control of their country. So in this case, once the Down Brigade starts going through some little skirmishes, some little battles along the way, once you get near the end, they pretty much gain control of their whole country again. And this is all in 13 chapters pretty much. So they, by the end, regain control and they face Gerard. Gerard is you could say, the main antagonist of this first part one. And well, this man gets to do a lot of bad stuff. But overall, I believe, although he's generic, he is not the worst antagonist I've seen in Fire Emblem. He has a bit of, you could say, genuinity. He's not just a copy-paste villain because of the fact that he is evil, but not, like evil all the time. Like he has a bit of complexity to him. By the end, you understand that although he is very prideful and arrogant, he's willing to put his life on the line and die for his country. So, but at the same time, that could be a bit of cliche. I believe that he's not wholly cliche, and he's pretty interesting. So yeah, Micaiah, so pretty much all the Down Brigade, with all the aforementioned characters, they unite and go up against Begnon and Nabasa inside a prison, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where we gain control of the country. Along the way, before all this happens, that when they get to know Nyla and Tormod and Bika, they also find 3 other powerful allies, which are from Path of Radiance, the sequel to this game, which is one of the most beloved games. I believe more people like Path of Radiance better than this game. But overall, this game is still, like I mentioned, in my opinion, still the best out of the whole series. So yeah, they get to know Charonio, Psychark, and Jill, all 3 from Path of Radiance. And with these 3 characters, it's the daughter of King Valencia, Almeda, and the daughter of King Ashnard, Hellas, which is according to this time of the story, what you know, the rightful heir to the Ain, the one who is meant to be king of the Ain. So they use this character as a moral boost to the Ain troops, and they also boost this way the population of the Ain to make them feel not lost against Begnion, so that way they have an aspiration to regain back their country and have a proper king that can lead them to victory and prosperous future. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole part of story one. Next, we come up to the second part, which is the Alencia Gambit. Alencia, you could say, re-encounter, where you can see how she's faring in Crimea and how she's evolving and how she has become a more powerful character. And by powerful, I don't mean like in the raw display of it, more in the personality trait that she has developed. As you remember, if you play Path of Radiance, spoilers for Path of Radiance 2, she has pretty much through the whole game a very soft personality. She seems pretty gentle, but she also seems a bit undecisive and a bit weak at times. Pretty much she's carried by Ike and the Grail mercenaries through the whole game, even at the end where she is meant to regain control of Crimea. So yeah, I mean, pretty much in this game, in this second part of the written down story, as you can see her as a more evolved character, which is already much more mature, and she is more like based on her responsibilities and her duty as a queen, sorry, which she could be at the same time the king, because she's the sole monarch of her country. But yeah, you know what I mean. That she's the only one. There's no king. She's the king and the queen. But yeah, Alencia, she has this very gentle, stale display, but at the same time, if she's being threatened or shown, like disrespect by someone else that is threatening her country, she shows no fear. She has this display of you should respect me because I'm not just here to let my country get destroyed or overtaken by any tyrant or anybody who's trying to force their way through it. And that's the main part of the story. That's pretty much the fact that throughout that second part, she's being faced with a revolution started by this character Ludwig. This character, this man, is trying to take control of Crimea and become its king. But she is not living up, and she will show that her citizens are meant to be respected, and that her reign is meant to be respected. But she's not going to just come down the throne and let anybody else take it. To the very end, to that very last chapter where encounter Ike throughout the story after those first 17 chapters, I believe, in total. That's the first appearance of Ike and the Grail Mercenaries to Raiden Dawn, the end of part 2. So yeah, that second part of the story connects with the last game, you could say, but it's a continuation of what we saw from Alencia in the past in Path of Radiance, and how she now has control over pretty much her country to a T. And she's very well shown and developed. In my opinion, she's one of the best characters overall too in Raiden Dawn and as a whole, in the Tilly series in those two games. In Path of Radiance, like I mentioned, she needed a bit more development, in my opinion. But now in Raiden Dawn, she shows us more of a solid character that has developed and learned like a proper queen, And yeah, that's pretty much it. The second part, involves her taking not control over her country, but taking back the respect from her citizens, because this Ludwig character was saying stuff about her, was spreading rumors and spreading disrespectful propaganda to dissuade people from believing in her capabilities and making her look weak in front of the whole country. But throughout this second part, with her and her faithful troops, which in this case we have Makalov, Kieran, Astrid, Joffrey, Khalil, Detan or Dambit, it's a joke right there, Marcia, and she also gets assisted by, if I'm not mistaken, Tulagus, which are Nealucci and Lian. So yeah, maybe there will be a few more characters that I'm missing, but those are pretty much the main ones. Oh yeah, also we have Mordecai and Lethe, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, all of those characters help her drive out Ludwig's opposition. And like I said, she pretty much gains through that second part of the story the respect back from her. And like I mentioned, I'm displaying right now why this is the best story, but overall, as you can see, there's a lot of depth through this just 17 chapters. At this point, we're pretty much at the third part of the game. We still have other 2/3 to go through, based on content, and the amount of stuff that we do after this. And there's already a lot of complete stuff and good storytelling to go along. After this opposition is conquered by Alencia, she pretty much is saved by the Grail Mercenaries once again. But she's very brave throughout the whole story, and she shows pretty much that, like I mentioned, her reign and her people is not meant to be disrespected and mistreated by some usurper who's trying to take control of Crimea just by force without actually, deserving that spot. But I believe that by the end of the game, she was very fair. That story, she was very fair, and I believe she even showed to Ludwig that she was willing to get that spot that she has to other person, as long as they had the proper means to reign and protect Crimea. But she knew that Ludwig was not that person, so she pretty much did all in her power, and she took decisions that really hurted her, But at the end of the day, they paid off because she was able to free her people from this invasion, opposition, revolution. So yeah, after this come part three. Part three, pretty much, it's the main dish of this game. It's a conflict of the whole uh, country, the whole continent of Telius. We have a whole scale war from Telius, Begnian, Crimea, the Ain, and the Lagus countries, which are Goldoa, Gallia, Kilbas, and Phoenix. Pretty much each of them representing the crows, the hawks, the dragons, and the cats, lions, and tigers from Gallia. Those last three, and pretty much, in my opinion, just that third part, in and of itself, can put it as a story element above all the other games in the series, because not only it was the first time that we saw a whole war at the same time in a whole continent so well developed and discussed, it also is the best one. I mean, it's not the first time only, but the best one overall. And like I said, I'm going to discuss some issues at the end that we have, but overall, it's great. I mean, this story where displayed the opposition, and all of them shown in different light, and there's not really one real evil part of this one. All of them have their reasons for fighting, and I believe all of them are quite balanced. There's some plots which are very cliche, and well, they're just BS, as you could say. But overall, this part of the story where we see how Begnion and Dain are fighting pretty much all the other countries, which are Crimea and Gallia and Goldoa. It's out of this entirety. I mean, they're not part of this conflict. They're isolated from fighting or from, well, supporting any side. So yeah, you can count them out. But Kilbas and the Phoenix, those are also fighting in this war. You could say that for the Kilbas part, there's something there which you could say that they're not really helping one side, because there's something that happened throughout the story that makes them kind of be in a gray area. But besides them, Phoenix, Gallia, Crimea are fighting together the Ain and Begnion throughout this third part of the story. So yeah, pretty much this part of this third act in the whole game involves us getting to know that the Black Knight is actually Selgius. We know that once we get to know his swordsmanship and see him fight in the game, he's the captain, the commander, sorry, of the Begnion forces. And well, although he is under the commands of those dreaded, I forgot what they are, to be honest, but you know, they're like kind of the leading, the senators. He has this character which is helping him, which is believed to be dead or at least missing, which is the Duke of Persis, Severin. And these two are working together to develop a plot to make something happen towards the end of the game. So yeah, pretty much this whole war is orchestrated by a few characters with the objective to get to the last part of the game. So yeah, the construction that they did, that third part especially, is very special because of that. Because you have a war where the aim has been taken over by Beckman again, because they did a very dirty trick, which by itself, it's like I said, a cliche, and in this case we're talking about the blood contract. What is this, or why is it a cliche? Well, that secret, or that element that forces, may it be a character, may it be a group, or may it be whatever that involves an entity or people, forced into battling, into participating into something on one side that, well, it's the evil side most of the time. So yeah, this blood contract element was not only used against the Ain, but also the Kilbas. In this case, the Kilbas, although they were fighting for the Laguz Alliance, they did betray the Phoenix, because the king of Kilbas, King Asala, was pretty much forced or tricked into signing a contract for a Senator Lacane, which I believe is one of the most hated characters of this game. He also was the one who pretty much tricked King Peleas from the into signing that the blood contract, and pretty much that way forcing them to fight for Begnion, or at least for the senators and their schemes and their means to take control of Tellius, you know. But yeah, pretty much at the end of the day, this third part of the story involves this conflict, where the Ain is fighting alongside Begnion against all the other countries against their will, because, well, they're being forced to do it to a degree. I believe that pretty much this part of the story, it's a very epic. It involves, like I mentioned, the whole continent fighting, all of them but one country, which is Hulda, in this huge conflict which is developed throughout this part of the story, has a very interesting development, which by the end of it, as you can see if you saw that portrait or the front cover of this game, there's in the front, in the middle of the title, a blue shining thing. This is, you could say, the fire emblem, literally, of this game. In this case, this emblem is housing inside a being which is called by everybody in this game throughout the whole game, but by the end, this is where they happen to know what's actually inside of it, a dark god, which is meant to never be freed, because, well, if it's free, that would mean certain doom will come upon Tellius, and death and destruction will come upon them. Or at least that is what is being told, or that's the legend about it, you know, pretty much that started from the Path of Radiance, from King Ashnard's conflict. So this has been pretty much a rumor, which pretty much everybody has been following through the whole game. So yeah, this is this whole conflict, this whole war, developing the two sides of this story, you could say, which is the Laguz Alliance and the Begnion opposition. ends, leading towards the end of this third part in the liberation of this dark god from its mythology. And once it's liberated by the Calder of Release, by Micaiah, Sanaki was the one meant to do it, but when she sung the Calder, it didn't work. Micaiah was the one who actually was able to do it, because it's mentioned that you need to know both the song and the lyrics to do it. And Sanaki knew the song, if I'm not mistaken. Micaiah was the one who knew the lyrics, so yeah, that was the main component to liberating the supposed dark god. And well, that's pretty much at the end of it. That's pretty much what happens. The dark god is released, and this is not a dark god. It's a main character from the story that has been, you could say, kept in secret, because she's connected directly to the final antagonist of this game, which is Ashera. In this case, we have this being, which is June. She's the goddess of chaos, and Ashera is the goddess of order. So these two are meant to be opposite to each other, one being order and one being chaos. But at the end of the day, they both together form one being, which in this case is Ashenera. Ashenera is a goddess which, had no you could say, affiliation to any of it, although those two mentioned before, the order and the chaos. So she's not Ashenera, the goddess of order and chaos. By its nature, if you have chaos within you, you can be through order represented, and if you have order in you, you cannot be truly chaos represented. So she was pretty much just the goddess Ashenera, and she, in the story, was the creator of all life in Telius. The Bjork, which are the characters which are more human looking, like those who use lances and swords and axes and magic and arrows, pretty much. And the Lagus, which are the ones who transform into this animal forms. They fight using their body, pretty much. So yeah, at the end of the day, when they free June, they come into contact with this truth, and Micaiah was close to a little bird. This bird, she named June. I don't know if in this story that's meant to be just a coincidence with the fact that the goddess of chaos, it's named June too, or if this little bird character was actually in some way connected to this goddess of chaos. Maybe it's a bit of the two, maybe it's just coincidence, or maybe it's actually, all just part of the plan. So yeah, once the goddess is released, she can take control of Micaiah from time to time, and that way communicate with all the characters that fought. By the end of this conflict, pretty much all the main characters which I fought before with you that were playable 100% after they were unlocked. I mean, when they were unlocked and they had access to the character roster, and that's not that they were always playable, because you had characters which were not playable at all in some chapters, because in the story they had to do something else, or they had some sort of thing stopping them from being able to participate in the war. But yeah, overall, pretty much the whole roster is available at this point. At the end of part 3, and this whole conflict, this whole war, all of this death of people from both sides, Lagos and Bjork, ended up liberating the goddess of chaos, June. So yeah, after all this conflict, which had many casualties, you could say, once the next part of the story starts, which is part 4, starts, we have this ray of light, or this orb of light, whatever it is, circular, makes pretty much everybody that is not one of the main characters. In the story it says that it's pretty much the ones which are not that powerful, you know, like normal Lagos, normal Bjork, and those which not were the most strongest of the strongest. And which is interesting because I didn't train Meg and Fiona, so I'm pretty positive that some of those characters that were converted into stone were much powerful than those two, and Meg and Fiona did not convert into solid stone. So that, right there, ladies and gentlemen, it's a plot hole in the whole story. But yeah, pretty much everybody that is not a main character is converted to stone in this day that way. No matter if they're a Lagos or a Bjork. That was Asherah's order, or decision. If she was woken up before, I believe, 100 years, because they were not able to stay in peace for 100 years after she, before she awakened. When she awakened was before that time came to pass. So she decided to bring down her judgment, which was pretty much to convert everybody to stone. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of part 3, that whole conflict between all of the characters. For part 4, pretty much like I mentioned, all the people that was available, it's now available for just to fight. But you need to separate them between 3 armies, which are, if I'm not mistaken, needed by Ike, Elencia, and Micaiah. And all of them can pretty much only have one of the main herons. You cannot have 2 herons in one single army. And there's other 4 or 3 characters which you cannot swap between them. You're always forced to use them in certain army. But in any case, you can only use 1 heron per each army. You cannot have 2 herons in one army, one with one and one with no heron. There should be an even split between those 3. So yeah, at this point, like I mentioned, once part 4 starts, and you split you can pretty much split them any way you want, but I believe that the way or the number of people that you can split between all of them is done in a way which lets you have at least enough characters in each army for you to be able to face the part 4 of the story. So yeah, pretty much this part 4, it's you fighting the forces of order. You could say the blessed beasts, which are in this case, interestingly enough, only Bjorks. We don't have no Lagos blessed by Asherah. We only have Bjork. Which is a bit interesting because, I believe she created all of her creatures equally, so it's a bit racist that she did not have the Lagos participate, at least in this part 4 of the story. So yeah, pretty much part 4, it's just you fighting, I believe, in a total, I don't know, I don't remember if it was 6 or 9 chapters. If I'm not mistaken, it's only 6. You only fight twice per each. You only go 2 battles for each army that you created with all the characters, all the main characters that you have, all the secondary characters that you have, pretty much all the playable characters that you have. So yeah, once you face these challenges, now you go on to the 5th part, or you could say last part of the story. In this part of the story, you go through a tower of challenges, and in this part of the story, you pretty much finish many things, some things from Path of Radiance and some things from this game. For example, once you form your final army, which in this case, once you get to that final fight, that final tower, now you're given access to other more powerful characters. For example, Bulk. Bulk was an assassin, which started in Path of Radiance as a character which was connected to Grail, Owain, father of Ike, and he comes as a character that is optional, which you can recruit from part 4. Also, you have Stefan. Stefan is recruitable by Micaiah in the first chapter that you use her, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the Desert chapter, in which you fight Lekane. And these 2 characters are just part of the characters that you can recruit. Also, Eren. Eren from the first part of the story is recruitable by Laura, which Laura, you can have her join you without talking to her. And I believe there's other characters that I may be forgetting about, but those 3 are pretty much some of the main people that you can recruit. Especially, I mean, Eren, it's pretty obvious when you see him because he is very unique. He's not a generic Becknion character, you know, those that you have a red helmet and their eyes cannot be seen. You can only see their nose and mouth. Eren has no helmet on his portrait. He has green hair, and that's a very, it's like striking sign. You know, by striking I mean very, different. So that way you know that character may be actually recruitable. By who, you really know, but I believe it's hinted to a degree that he can be recruited by Laura. So yeah, going back to part 5. Here you get access to Bulk, you get access to Stefan, you get access to all the Lion, King, most powerful Lion in the game, which is Kenigus, the King of Gallia, and you also have access to his second-hand Gifka. Also, the uncle of Valencia, Renning, he becomes available by this point too. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's it, because Nesala and Nesala was available before Scrimmer too, so those two don't really count. And Goldoa pretty much you get nobody to support you, but Kurtanaga, which joined you back in part 3, becomes the only dragon that you can have as an ally. There's also, I believe, Anna, but Anna was already playable from Path of Radiance, so she's not really a new character or a really impactful character that joins you through part 5. But yeah, Kurtanaga, it's available, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was also available in part 4. So yeah, you get joined by all of those characters, you can choose only hand-picked amount of them. You can only bring one of the herons once again. That rule is not changed. You cannot bring 3 herons or 2 herons. You can only bring one with you. And at this point of the game, most of the time, if I'm not mistaken, the best one to bring is Raisin. Because he has most gather, and he's the one that which has a better evasion. She's pretty much the best one for surviving. That's the reason why I believe mostly he's the one who is brought pretty much all the time to this final fight or these final chapters. So yeah, once you make your army, you make your team of, I believe, 15 around. It's not more than 20, but I believe it's no less than 15 units. You here in the first chapter finally get to resolve the blood contract part of the story. The 2 of them in a single shot. This is the part where you get to defeat Lekane, which he's the one who was always holding the blood pacts. The one that was directly affecting Peleus, and the one that was directly affecting Nesala. So yeah, talking about Peleus too, actually, there's a point in part 3 where you are given the choice to kill him or not, but at the end of the day, it becomes for your first playthrough, you are forced to kill him. There's not like, okay, I don't want to kill him. Let's find another way to get rid of the blood pact. No. He searches through a library and he finds a book which tells him that the only way to save his country from certain doom, if they continue to fight for Begnion, if they stop to fight for Begnion, the only way to do it is to kill him, to kill the person who signed the contract. And they come to find out that didn't solve anything. So, if this was your first time, Peleus should be dead by this point. But if this is your second playthrough onwards, right at the same part of the game where you were able to say no for him to die, and you try to find another way to solve that issue, you can choose no, and Peleus joins you. If I'm not mistaken, he only joins you up until part 4. If I'm not mistaken, he doesn't join part 3. So he only stays there in the castle, and once part 4 comes around, that's where you can use him. He's pretty much the only black mage in the game, if I'm not mistaken. But I believe he's the only one who can use black magic. He's the only black mage. And Micaiah can use allied magic, which is poisonous Spalara. This one was holded by Senator Baltome, another one of those very cute and lovable characters, huh? Totally sarcastic, this last comment that I did. So he's the only one that can use Worm, Baldurin, among other black magic types. And black magic is, I believe, the most powerful one in the game, because it's a strong pretty much against all the other forms of magic. Wind, fire, and electric, which I'm mistaken, those are the only other 3 besides light being the one which is weak against the other 3 that I mentioned, but strong against dark magic. And well, the NPCs are the only ones who can use dark magic in this game. So going back to part 5. In part 5, you get to finally defeat Lekane in the other center, which I'm not mistaken is Hetzel. Let's not forget, actually, sorry for going back and forth. In part 4, you can recruit uh, another senator. This senator is Oliver. Oliver has this story in the game which, from Path of Radiance, he has been very loving of the herons. So he has this gimmick in part 4 in which if you put a heron on top of the area where he's sitting, the tiles, the floor, where he is waiting for you to fight, he automatically goes up to that heron and joins you and he starts fighting his own troops, which is very hilarious. So yeah, here Oliver, it's another one of those characters which you can recruit by doing special conditions, pretty much. So yeah, going back to part 4, the second fight, if I'm not mistaken, second floor in that tower is where you go up against Celsius. In this case, he comes up dressed up as the Black Knight. So now Ike, after fighting Celsius in part 3, knowing that he is the Black Knight, pretty much because, well, some of the mercenaries told him about that, but mostly because he watched his swordplay, like I mentioned before. It's pretty obvious that Celsius was the Black Knight. So in this chapter, you fight up against Lebail, which is his comrade, his assistant, and Celsius, which in this case was blessed with the holy sword, with the holy armor, blessed by Ashura, and he was also holding the other blessed sword, in this case, Alamdite. Ike was, as we know, using Ragnell. So yeah, they fight, and well, you must defeat him. If you defeat him, I believe depending if this is your second playthrough or if certain conditions were met throughout the play, you get an extra little cutscene or story bit where you can hear a bit more about his past and understand him as a character better. And from the Veil, all we get is the Wishblade. Also, last chapter was holding a double bow, which is the most broken bow in the whole game, and Wishblade being the most broken lance in the whole game. So yeah, after that, sorry for the so many sojas, but that's the only way that I know how to have a continuous. Coming next, okay, we have the third floor. In this third floor, no more games, gloves are off, unit needs to bless your weapons. And after your weapons are blessed, now you're finally ready to face the only Goose Race, which did not appear before in the whole game, nor supporting, of course, Crimea or the Lagos Alliance or Beckman and the aim through that whole continental fight. The dragons. You finally get to fight the dragons. And in order for you to fight the dragons, you need to have a blessed weapon, because the dragons, well, they're so powerful and you can do any damage to them against your fighting them with that blessed weapon. So once we get here, we also get to fight Teginsia, which was of course another character that we were interested in, onto why he did not join us to fight but at the start of this part of the story, part 5. And well, that was pretty much the reason why he was always going to side with Asherah because of how the story developed, and well, he being part of the characters that were part in the origin of Telis. So we fight him, and of course we need to defeat him. Dragons are weak to electricity, so it's very essential to use Red's Bolt here. Red's Bolt, it's very powerful magic. Some people, where they are very knowledgeable, they're really good at this game, they're really prepared sometimes to this part of the story. Pretty much they don't need Red's Bolt to beat Dainsia. But if you're a person which is your first or second time playing this game and you're getting to know better this game for the gameplay part and how it works, you're most of the time going to be relying a lot on Ileana and her nuke of electric magic, which does around 40 damage. Maybe you can manage. No, I don't believe you can manage to go up to 50. I believe the limit is like 40 something ish. But there's other characters which also do a lot of damage, like the double bow with roll for Shinon. Very devastating, and especially because you need to use an ability called Nehel. So Nehel, it's an ability which nullifies the special abilities of your characters, which is something that I'm going to talk more about after this bit of the story. So we come up, and we need to defeat the Dainsia, and of course we do it. So we need to defeat the Dainsia. Once we beat him, we go up to the next floor, 4th floor, and we don't know what it's going to come up there, but we could have a pretty good idea already, based on, well, the characters which did not support us and, well, did not appear before in the story. And in this case, we either have Asherah or Sephiroth. In this case, we go for that second one, Sephiroth. He's the one that we need to face off, and we need to defeat him in order for us to be able to continue. So once we defeat him, there's this possibility, or more than possibility, we can unlock this feature of him joining us for the final fight. But it's not easy at all to achieve that. I believe that we need to have a very speedy Ike fight up against Black Knight in a certain chapter that I mentioned before, where the Black Knight is protecting Micaiah, and Ike needs to hit the Black Knight twice, so he has to have enough speed to hit the Black Knight twice and survive during the process, of course, because if we die there, then if we did not use our save feature, pretty much need to repeat the whole chapter again. And I wouldn't like to do that, I assure you that much. This game is very long, so you're going to be in for a real long treat if you face off up against him and you die. So yeah, if we defeat Sephiroth, having that possibility, if we did the right steps before of him joining us, or, well, he just dies there, we come up to our next floor. Next floor, it's the final one. We go up against Asherah finally, being her the final antagonist of this game. Her fight is pretty special, and I believe overall in the whole series to this day is the one that has the most epic skill, you could say, taking into account that the map, or the way that her fight was prepared, has some hazards that help her, and also she uses a special aura wall protecting her. And each of these have 100 HP, and her itself, herself, sorry, itself, what? She has, I believe, 100 HP too. She's pretty tanky. So yeah, you need to destroy all of the auras protecting her before you can attack her. And if you take more than one turn once you dissipated the whole aura, which you need to have Nihil to protect yourself against it, because these walls have the same property of other enemies which have counter, which if you don't have Nihil, you will receive recoil damage for each time that you damage them. So this complicates things even further. So yeah, once we get rid of the whole wall protecting Ashura, finally can face her. But there's a very important thing. The last hit, the very last hit on her, when the killing blow, needs to be done by Ike. No other weapon can get her the killing blow. You can damage her, you can take her down to her last hit points. But if you hit her with another weapon besides Ragnail, I believe even Alondite is not able to do it. It needs to be Ike and also with Ragnail. Like I mentioned, if you hit her with other weapon but the Ragnail weapon, with Ike using him of course, she's going to recover her whole bar. She's going to go up all the way back to 100 HP, and you're going to need all over again, more than likely, face up against a whole aura thing, because if you don't defeat her through that turn, after you were chipping her out until you were able to finally give her the last blow, she's going next turn to put the whole wall up again, and you're going to be in for trouble. Because she also has a special end of the turn command or power, which throws up against everybody a wall, sorry, not a wall, a wave of power or aura, which damages you depending on their resistance or their defense. If I'm not mistaken, it can be either of the two or one of the two, and how close you are to her. So you need to be very careful with the units that you put close to her, because if you put close to her very weak mages or healers, they're pretty much bound to die. In this case, I did defeat her normal using pretty much all the orc characters, but most of the people which are speed running the game, they just want to get it done. They pretty much use all the Lagoos, kings and princes and commanders, because those dudes are broken. They do a lot of damage. They can suck up a lot of damage too. They are very tanky, and well, they're very powerful overall. So yeah, once we defeat her with the final blow from Mike, the story ends in a way that you could say it's pretty satisfying. The whole continent is liberated from her. All the people which became petrified before became stone. They would come back to normal. Even those which were in the battlefield, and they come to an understanding in which the fighting stops. I'm pretty positive that this does not happen everywhere, but at least the moment where they decide to show us that the scene, cutscene. Sorry. It's pretty cool because it leaves you with that hope, you know, at least that the Lagoose and the Bjork will finally learn to live together, you know, to not hate each other anymore, to not continue just fighting for the sake of continuing to fight. And that's pretty good, to be honest. So yeah, so yes. It's a story. June says goodbye to Ike and Micaiah, but I believe that his goodbye to Ike was more wholesome. And those last words of Ike, of course, telling her that they're allowed to be free from the goddesses and the gods and everything that were there in the story, and that they will love to make their own path and learn together how to live in peace in harmony. Very similar to a degree to Shin Megami Tensei perspective, where you defeat at the end a god being or a very powerful being, and well, you leave up to that neutrality, the people to learn together how to live and be with each other in peace, and pretty much they by themselves continue to understand and become united, you know, as beings, as part of a hell, in this case continent. It is very important for the Lagoose and the Bjork to be together. And that's pretty much the whole message of the story. This has a bit of racism in it. From the Lagoose hating on Bjork and Bjork hating Lagoose, calling them, they call them subhuman and human when they are trying to be racist, but they did it very nicely. I mean, they didn't misconstrue it. It's very well represented, and from what you can see, I'm here right now at the 1 hour 12 minutes mark already. The story, it's huge. It's a very huge story, and it did omit a lot of details, a lot of them. So you can learn all the bits and pieces by yourself if you give this game a chance. But I hope that you can understand why, at least from the story's point, why I believe it's the best one. I'm going to go more in depth when I talk about Micaiah, about the story, hopefully in the future. But yeah, the story, it's very rich, very big, very well made, even with its issues. Now for the issues, of course, of the story, we have the blood pact part, of course. That mechanic was very forced to a degree, and I believe they could have done better, maybe. So yeah, the blood pact, not good. And also maybe the pacing in some parts was not the best, but I really did like, and I believe it's one of the very strong points, the way they structurized the story. Like there's some movies out there, some series, you know, that have this format in which you see one story and then you jump to another story. It can be a whole mess, you know. But if you do it correctly, if you know how to handle yourself with, you know, your writing, how you pace everything, even if you take into account 3 or 4 stories or people in a whole, and if you jump between all of them, you can make it pretty interesting. And I believe they achieved something very good here. Like I mentioned before, sometimes it has some pacing issues, and sometimes it has some plot devices which are not very appreciated, but overall very solid. The game is great, most definitely at least an 8.5 in that story front. And now for the gameplay, I believe the gameplay in Raiden Down is the most solid in the whole series. Fire Emblem Fates being up there too. I really like the gameplay in Fates too, not the story, the gameplay. So yeah, which is the reason why I believe the gameplay is the best one in the whole series. Well, you have, for starters, one of the most interesting map designs in the whole series. Maps with destructible objects. You can interact with objects in the map. You have some maps with altitudes, with platforming mechanics, and you have a lot of different locales, you could say. Snowy locales, city locales, lava locales, special structures looking locales, like, you know, that last part 5. But overall, very varied. You know, it's not just a single type you're always fighting in the city and that's it. No, have a lot of locales and a lot of variety and a lot of way of structuring the maps. Sorry for that. And of course, besides that, we have also how the fight goes. You know, we have more present than ever the weapon triangle: swords, lances, axes, bows. Pretty much you can also counter to crossbows. You have other varieties of these, you know, like the different grades for each weapon: bronze, silver, iron, and I believe there's no gold, but you could say that the gold ones are the legendary weapons. But yeah, the way that they did balance the weapons is very interesting. From the Lagoose side, I believe that while they were not awfully done, I believe that the Lagoose could have been more interestingly done, you know. Maybe some mechanics to help them out, especially when they're not transformed. Would have been interesting. Something to balance out their weaknesses when they were not transformed. Because I believe overall the Lagoose are the most uninteresting characters to use, unless you're using a broken one. But I believe there should be a balance, you know, like if you're using a Lagoose and a pure character from their initial stages before they are broken, it should be fun to use them both, you know, to not have the Lagoose being totally weak and open when they're just starting to be developed, you know, as powerful units, from being not being powerful to be powerful. And yeah, I mean, that's when it comes to the weapons. Very interesting weapon designs, weapon variety, weapon mechanics, because the range of the weapons, the quality of the weapons, the durability of the weapons, like I mentioned, the weapon triangle, that was just also applied to magic, like I mentioned before. Dark being strong against pretty much all forms of magic, but light, and light being strong against dark, and weak against all the other forms of magic. So yeah, very well structured for the weapons in this game, which are very essential part of the gameplay. Also, the tier management, I believe that once you get to a next tier for each character evolution, it really feels like a jump overall for all this stuff that is involved with their coming of improvement, no? You know, like especially when they go from second to third tier, when a sword master becomes a true blade and gains all of those perks coming with along with the stat boost that they get, of course, which is the most basic thing that you should get, of course. Especially those third tier skills, the characters feel very very strong. It feels very satisfying to use them. True Blades being able to use Astra, Sentinels, which is the final evolution for lance units, being able to use Impale, Reavers, which are of course the final evolution of fighters or ATS units, Bjork ATS units, which are not armored, to being able to use now Colossus. All of them are very good looking specials. The ones for the cavalry units and armored units are not as cool, but they're cool too, you know. And well, those special powers that some units get. I believe that overall the only character that has a unique power up is Ike, because none other character gets Aether. Only Ike gets Aether, and only Ike gets a unique one. Because Corona, it's part of the power up that a Saint gets, if I'm not mistaken. So even the power up of Micaiah, it's not unique to her. Any other healer, which makes it to third tier class, which is Saint, can have access to Corona. So yeah, all of those power ups along also the biorhythm. Biorhythm is, in my opinion, very cool. Gives more depth, and I mean, it can be kind of, like annoying to deal with it, but although it gives you some degree of variety, and if you decide to play the game without trying to make the RNG play to your command or to your liking, it can be very enjoyable, because you can play one character that you have barely played with and use it in a different chapter where you have your favorite character or one of the characters you use the most with the bad biorhythm. There's other characters which have a biorhythm which can each turn go up very sharply and then go down very sharply, and there's others which have this wave which goes upwards or downwards way more smoothly. So there's a lot of variety in there, and you could say it's to a degree something that could be affected by RNG, but come on, sometimes RNG, if it's used correctly, can give you some interesting and more depth to a gameplay. And it's very satisfying when you have a character with maximum biorhythm with the green arrow going up, and you just see that character, even being weak against the other weapon triangle, shred to units. When I see a true blade with max biorhythm destroying lance units, it's very satisfying. Also, the same goes for some lance units or lance units, especially all of those infantry units. The infantry units adds lances and swords. Very, very satisfying to being able to shred to any class in the game once they are in their third tier, of course, and with the max biorhythm. So very good. I mean, it gets more depth, like I mentioned before. It's a bit of an RNG mechanic. It's welcome, in my opinion. It's not overly annoying or bad to a degree where you would feel bad by using it. So that's pretty much when it comes to that, everything. Besides that, I believe that's it. I mean, the skill system was improved from Path of Radiance. Now that if you have skills and you want to take the skills off a character, some of those skills use no cost at all from your cost wheel, and that's a bit bad. But this time around, if you unassign a skill from another character, you can reuse that on the same character or use it on another character. Before, if you took off a skill from a character, that skill will be lost forever. So it's very unpleasant. So overall, a very good improvement. And like I mentioned, this game overall feels very well structured for all of its mechanics and gameplay bits. And the gameplay experience overall is very good. Definitely I would not go below 8.5 on that section. And now we go to the music and the visuals. The visuals, sorry, for the game are maybe not top notch, but definitely for a Wii game, they were very nice and improved. I mean, it's not Mario Galaxy nice, you know, but come on, the game was decent looking and much better looking than, much more refined and better looking than Path of Radiance for a game that came out pretty much 2 years or 1 year later after Path of Radiance. I believe it's 2 years, and pretty much going on a very similar hardware. That was a lot of improvement. And the music, beautiful music. There's a lot of very good pieces. Pretty much classical music, but come on, it's not like always you have violin and that's it. No, you have a lot of instruments: piano, cello, violin, some guitars, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, but pretty much a lot of instruments that you would listen through an orchestra. And yeah, the genres kind of feels like it has a couple genres in there, but they don't deviate or go out of the classical spectrum. They are not like, you don't have drum and bass in there, for example, or rock music or jazz music. You know, it's pretty much classical, but like I said, it's not a one tone or a very similar tone classical music. All of them are, I mean, most of the songs are very unique in their way that were created, and some of them are very epic and very fun to listen to them while you're playing. Very good overall. Well, now for the bad things. The bad things of this game. And I'm not gonna say this is something that is not an elephant in the room, because this may be actually a circus in the room. It's the support conversations. It's definitely the Achilles heel of this game. They're horrible. They're generic as can be in that part of the game. If there's ever come to be a remake of this game, if they can create a proper support conversation system, this game will be improved by quite a lot. Like I said, maybe some other issues, like I said, with the pacing of the story and some of the plots, the plots that they use to move the story along, like that plot pact and some other issues, minor issues that I need to go more in depth with them, but I believe that they're not huge enough for me to discuss them at length, or to even mention them here. But yeah, like I mentioned, overall those supports are horrible, and it's really needed to have a proper support system. And if we have in the future, hopefully, a remake of this game, a remaster, a remake, please. Hopefully we get that the revamp and the well-made support conversations. If they don't want to make it for all the characters, at least make it for the main ones. Like the most important ones. Because this game has huge roster of characters. At the very least, we have 60, if not even more. So yeah, 60 plus playable characters. Maybe do it for the main 40 or 30 characters. They've been able to do it in the latest ones, like Fates and Awakening, and even Three Houses. They have proper support conversations in those games, so I don't believe there will be an issue making support conversations for 40 characters. It's still a very manageable story element. I mean, a very manageable amount of characters, sorry, but very important element to develop characters and learn more about them. Really learn about them too, because some support conversations are just very plain and uninteresting. But if they do it the right way, they could really hit gold right there and make this game the definitive one for everybody, not just for me, because like I said, in my heart and in my pretty much whole analysis that I did here, this game is the best one in the whole series. So if you have any opinion regarding this discussion, this unscripted analysis, you can leave your comments and tell me why you believe that this game is not the best. I already gave you here, at the very least, an hour and 30 minutes of me talking about this game, and maybe in the future I'll talk about Micaiah. I really would love to do that, but I believe that maybe for that I will need to make a scripted approach for that. I didn't want to make a script for this video because I wanted to talk out of, my mind. And also, to be honest with you, I don't have the resources and the time to do that. Currently I'm studying and I'm working. I'm not in YouTube, of course. I'm just working somewhere, doing a task for a company. And I don't have the time to really make scripts and edit the whole video. So I'm just trying to do my best here, talking about my ideas and sharing with you why I believe that this game is the best. And as I mentioned, as a whole, I put the game 8.5 too. If I would say I'm more unbiased, if I would say I'm more biased, of course I'll give it a 9. But I'll try to be a bit unbiased. Try to look more for if it's issues, especially as a game which could be developed more and has more potential to be better, although it already is quite good. And yeah, let's leave that 0.5 or more like 1.5 points up there for the improvements that could be done to that support system, to some of the story plot devices, and overall the story pacing. And the voice acting, yeah, I almost forgot. The voice acting in this game, it's horrible. I mean, not horrible, it can be charming to a degree, but it's still horrible and it's not good. It sounds very bad, but it's that bad, it's so bad that it's good, like, it can make you laugh. More than charming, sorry. It can make you laugh. But it exaggerates some voice lines that they sound so laughable. But yeah, that's really pretty much it. Like I mentioned, I believe this game was overall the best. 3 Houses did a very good job, in my opinion. It's a very good game as a whole. If you like it and you believe it's better than this one, well, I won't blame you, especially because you have not played this game, maybe, and you have only played 3DS era games, and of course the Path of Awakening, which was the one that, in true words, saved Fire Emblem. But yeah, maybe that has been your era. This was my first game, and even though it is my first game, I talk about this game being the best one, not from a biased or nostalgic perspective, but because I truly do believe it's the best one. All merits to the games that came before and after this game. for what they have done nicely and the best, and their regards. Once again, still stand. This game as a whole package, in my opinion, it's the best one in the whole Fire Emblem series. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I hope that you have an opinion to leave in the comments. Share with everybody what you believe, which is your point of view. From here, I'm out. Everybody take care, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.